Good morning, friends. So we continue our discussion about implementation of read-write log problem number 8. And in the previous two videos, we discussed about the problem statement and we implemented our basic production code in which we have an interface for both locking and unlocking the read and write logs. And we had a very basic knife implementation there. We are just maintaining a counter for readers, writers, and write requests. And in the same way, we have implemented all those four methods. Now let's, in this video, we are going to test this. So I have got my this J read write log test class, and I created two helper methods for testing this. So I have got this private int counter, a counter int variable, and we have got two methods: increment counter, which will be mutating this counter by incrementing it, and other is just for reading this counter value. So for the read write log, this is a perfect scenario that one thread, the writer thread, it will create a read write log. So we pass this as an argument here, our implementation for J read write log interface, read write log. And before we mutate this, as we have discussed, that there should be only one thread which would be writing on this object and on this variable counter. That's why we call this lock right here. And inside this try block, we increment this, we mutate this variable, and then finally we unlock it. Similarly, while reading it, we call this get counter method, in which we will be again passing the same read write lock object, interface object, and while reading it, we just return the counter value. But before that, we have to lock read and unlock read. So as discussed, that all these four lock write, unlock write, and this reading and unlocking reading, all has been implemented here in our basic knife class. Again, just to revise again, that whenever you are reading it, multiple threads can read it at the same time, unless there is no writer or there is no thread which has requested for the write. Only in that case, the lock read can be granted. Similarly, for the lock write, if there are any writers thread which are already there, or if there are any other threads which are currently reading that critical section, only in that case it has to wait. Otherwise, it can proceed with the write log. So this is the very basic read-write principle, single letter principle that we call. And now let's test this. So I'm going to use parameterized test because we have got several other versions of this that we're going to implement in the follow-up section when we cover the reentrants. So in that case, we will have multiple. So that's why I am going to use parameterized test unit test case, but all of them would be using this get read write logs. Okay, so let me implement this get read write logs now. So I have this private static stream arguments, okay, and then I will do get. I just copy this because our method source for this is this one, get read write logs, okay, and I will simply return a stream of arguments of our new J read write log, right? So new J read write log, this one, because this is the only object that we created so far for our very first implementation. And let me close this, return this. Okay, that's it. We have got this only new. Okay. So here we pass our, so this read write log would be coming from this new J read write log, which we have implemented here, our very first implementation of this interface. So let's go back and now write our test case where we are going to use these helper methods. So increment counter and get counter, okay? But before that, I will create some other helper methods where we are going to get, say, 5 reader threads and 2 writer threads. That will make our example a little bit interesting. And so, first of all, let me create some reader methods to get the reader thread. For that, I will use private thread get reader thread, and then I will use final, say, string. I will just give the name that what I want to give the name of the thread, and also I will give the read write log interface that we are going to provide it to it. Read write log. Okay. Now let me return a new thread. I will just pass a lambda here, and inside this, I'll create this runnable object like this. Okay, and also I will give a name, the thread name. So I'm using this constructor random where we are going to use this new thread. This is the runnable lambda, and this is the name of the thread that we are passing as an argument here. Okay, so this is all about it, and we close this. Now inside this runnable, let me create the runnable object. So I will just use a try first, and try, because it can throw some interrupted exception. So I will add it here beforehand. Interrupted exception. Okay, mark it as final. Get some space here. Okay. I dot print stack trace. Now let me create this int counter here. So first of all, I will be reading, because this is I'm a reader thread, right? So I will just reading it by calling this get counter method, and I will pass this read write lock. Okay, and once I create this int counter, then I need to just print it out, right? So I use this printf statement, and I will also mention the time. Time as %s, and then I will %s. Just reduce some space here, and just give a reader thread name, reader thread. It would be again a string. Should maintain this %s, and counter as %d, %n, for new line space. Now here the time would be, I will just create as local date time dot now. Let me give some space here so it's readable. And reader thread would be thread dot current thread dot get name, and finally the counter. Okay, so let me revise here. What I have done is that so I can just create this reader thread on demand, which will be returning this thread object. I can provide the name here as a reader thread, and the read write lock that we have implemented, and it will be returning this thread. Inside this, we have got this runnable lambda, where we will get the counter by passing this read write lock, and then we print out the statement that what is at current time, the reader thread name, and the counter value. And this get counter, as we have implemented, is that whatever read write lock that we have passed here. So in this case, we are passing this j read write lock. It will do a lock read and then return the counter. And then after this, finally, it will be unlocking it. So this is for the get user thread. Now let me implement it for a get writer thread. To save some time, I will just copy this and then make some changes. So get writer thread, and the parameters would be same, where we'll be passing this runnable lambda here and the thread name. Here, instead of reading it, because this is a writer thread, we will be just incrementing this counter. So for incrementing the counter, we have got this method, increment counter, passing this read write lock. Okay, so go back. I will just call increment counter, remove this because it's void. It is just going to mutate this counter by incrementing it by 1. And after this, I will have this writer thread. That's it, writer thread, and that's it. I think I don't need anything else because I just want to have this. Yeah, correct. I don't need anything else. So because we're just writing it now, and we are reading it by in the reader thread. We just write this thread by incrementing it by 1, and then other things are saying correct except this. Okay. So this is our implementation for get writer thread. Now let's use this get reader writer thread in our this test case. This is our test case.